There is a demon possessing America, an unholy worship of power, sex, wealth, and cruelty, and it goes by the name of Christian nationalism. In this video, I want to talk about James Talarico. He's Texas's Democratic nominee for Senate, as well as a seminarian, and I think that makes him the best person to argue against the Christian cosplay that calls itself Christian nationalism. So we're going to break down his 2024 sermon against Christian nationalism and learn how we can cast it out wherever we find it as well. And by the way, there's no prereqs for this video. You don't have to be a Christian or not be a Christian. You just have to have a decent heart. So let's dive right in. But I'll warn you, it doesn't start the way you think it's gonna.
It's the top reasons beer is better than religion. If you've devoted your life to beer, there are groups to help you. When you have beer, you don't knock on people's doors trying to give it away.
So I don't know about you, but this was a more playful intro than I thought it was going to be. Given that he's about to get into some heavy topics, this is surprisingly fun. But here's where we have to remember the genre that he's working in. This is not a political speech, this is a sermon. And it's actually a common trope of religious sermons to begin with humor. The idea being that not many people are going to follow the minutia of your theology, so you illustrate the point excessively right at the start. And actually, this joke does illustrate every point that Talarico is going to make. By playfully putting down what he calls religion, he's starting by saying, hey, we can make fun of ourselves, something which the other side is pointedly unable to do with their sacred cows. And he starts by linking this religion with an intoxicant, something which can make you feel good for a minute, but then lead you into harm. Does that ring any bells for you?
There is a cancer on our religion. Until we confess the sin that is Christian nationalism and exorcise it from our churches, our religion can do a lot more damage than a six-pack of Lone Star.
Can I get an amen? From the start, Talarico goes right for the jugular, because Christian nationalism would have you believe that it is legitimately Christian, and perhaps you are not. But Talarico will have none of this. Look at the language. Confess the sin. Exorcise it from our churches. He's portraying Christian nationalism as demonic. If there's one word he wants you to associate with Christian nationalism, it's power.
It is the worship of power. Social power, economic power, political power, in the name of Christ.
And so this is the central duality that he establishes. On the one hand, Christian nationalism, which is fundamentally about power, and on the other hand, his form of Christianity, which is fundamentally about love.
Power that is not shared, power that is not transformed into love, is pure domination and oppression. Christian nationalists are more committed to the love of power than to the power of love.
And I don't know, maybe in another era that would sound saccharine, but to me, love really does feel like the right message for 2026. We are done with the idol worship and the wolves in sheep's clothing, and the people hunger and thirst for righteousness. And that's not just a nice bless your heart message. I think this year that's genuinely a winning political message. And so here's where he starts to set the record straight, teasing apart the revisionist history we've been told about the church and about the country.
But 300 years after Jesus was executed by the Roman Empire, Emperor Constantine made Christianity the official state religion of that very same empire. Constantine was the first Christian nationalist.
Personally, I really appreciate this because I, and maybe you, have a lot of misgivings about Christianity as it's presented today. The bigotry, the condescension, the exclusivity. But what Talarico does is situate Christian nationalism not just in the last couple of years of American history, but all the way back with Emperor Constantine at Christianity's very founding. Talarico is basically saying, yeah, there have always been two parallel streams running through institutionalized Christianity. And if you, like me, have been burned out by the power-hungry Christian nationalist stream, then allow him to present an alternative.
The early church was a revolutionary community built on radical love. The book of Acts tells us that the first Christians were persecuted for turning the world upside down.
A revolutionary committee built on radical love. That sounds more like Martin Luther King with a dash of Bernie Sanders than it does anyone on the right today. And I have to add that that's not a fantasy reading of Jesus of Nazareth. That is the historical reading. He railed against religious hypocrisy and the hoarding of wealth, and he himself was the victim of a state execution. So Talarico's reading is in line with the Sermon on the Mount and various biographies of Jesus, like Reza Aslan's Zealot. By this point in the speech, we now have the 1,000-foot view of Talarico's project. So let's recap. He starts by comparing Christian nationalism to an intoxicant, and then a cancer, and finally a demon. He defines Christian nationalism's primary concern as the worship of power and shows how that power worship has been present from the very inception of Christianity. Christian nationalism is the closed fist of death. The way is a long arc bending towards justice.
The first followers of Jesus didn't call themselves Christians. They called themselves the Way.
And this is where I deeply resonate with Talarico, because for him, faith is not a possession, but a practice.
It is so hard to protect your spirit in a world trying to kill it. Things like love, peace, and hope, they require strength training. That's why we need stories and traditions and practices that heal our soul and transform our mind.
What I think Talarico's saying, and I could be wrong, is that anyone who tells you that they have the only way is selling you something. There's no one way. There's a way that emerges as you walk on it. And the more you walk it, the more you find countless other people walking with you. It's not a political movement, it's not a religious movement, it's the movement of love and compassion and connectedness in and through all of you. And whereas power, like that of Christian nationalism, is brittle and weak, the way is eternal and indestructible. But sorry, lost myself there. This is just a political channel. So anyway, it's a good speech. I recommend watching the whole thing if you have time. As for Talarico, we shall see whether he can cast out the demons in the general election this fall. I'd love to know your thoughts on how Talarico uses words, and let me know what you'd like to see me cover next. And if you liked the more cosmic part of this video, there's much more like it in my Substack, which you can access here. As always, I'm Ray Barcelo. This is No Idea. Go in peace.